Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joe Cusick from the Cusick Group. Securities offered by MoneyBlock with your closing bell for MarketStream.live. Final trading day of October. Happy Halloween. I have a bunch of kids ready to go out and trick or treat. So let's get down to what the action was today. The major averages finished today lower. Not much. They were basically just scraping along as we had talked about in the majority of the pieces today. They straddled basically right around slightly negative to trying to get slightly positive. Finished the day slightly in the red across the board. And not only did they just finish basically flat for the day, you also saw that they had moderate losses for the month. So we have a little bit of negativity in this. And it looks like participants at this juncture are taking more of a cautious approach as we get into the glut of earnings that are going to be coming out for the remainder of this week. The NASDAQ finished little unchanged, basically flat, but down about 2.3% for October. Meanwhile, taking a look at the S&P 500, that settled flat today, but finishing the month lower by about 1.9%. That upbeat start that we saw the beginning of today, it just was not going to last. Really, what's weighing on the market right now is the movement in the oil futures. The downturn in the oil futures continued today. We continue to hear the rhetoric out of OPEC as we had discussed, and we're going to keep on top of that because there's just not been any solid communication out of that group where they are going to come out with production cuts or at least a freeze. Now we saw that West Texas, WTI, which is the crude contract that we watch here in the United States, that finished off right off of its worst levels at $46.84 a barrel, down about $1.88. That's finishing the month of October down 2.6%. Again, we've been watching this trying to get over that $49, $50 level, which they needed to sustain if the oil bulls were going to have some legs. And folks, I just have to tell you that while the market's been shrugging this off, I'm not going to keep this off of my radar screen. I think this is something that we have to keep on our radar. Also, I had discussed earlier today and also in Tech Talk, the $47 level, specifically in the crude contract, 47.17. That's a long-term support level in that contract. We broke that and finished the day below that. We're starting to see some bearish sentiment really start to grow there in the crude contract. We want to keep an eye on that. Also, taking a look at the bond markets and specifically taking a look at how inflation is starting to look here in the United States, we saw the personal income numbers come out. They rose about 0.3%, so that's in line with expectations. Personal spending increased by 0.5%, but we also saw that the core PCE price index, that ticked higher, about 0.1%. So we're seeing that year-over-year growth right now is around 1.7%. Right now, this latest inflation numbers that are coming out and data that's coming out really shows no need that the Fed coming into Wednesday's meeting has any reason or rationale to raise rates. We see that being priced in. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Fed funds at the CME and the 30-day Fed Fund Watch tool, which gives you a probability of moving rates, in November, it's less than, I think, 9% now. And going into December, though, the probability of a rate hike getting it into the 50 to 75 basis points, so in other words, a 25 to 50 basis point move in rates, is around 77.8%. That is a decrease from where we saw it last week, had its peak at around 82. So very interesting. The energy sector, as I had noted in the crude markets, has been down, but there's also some names that we want to keep an eye on that are in the oil services sector. And the first one that I wanted to look at is Dow component Exxon. Exxon ended up lower today by about 1.7%. Actually, it's trading at 83.32 as I look at it, down about $1.46. Interesting that the options market is pricing in the potential for it to move around 322 going into November expiration. As a matter of fact, it only priced in this week of a range of plus or minus $1.42. So it's already moved its estimated move for the stock. So we got some volatility building in Exxon. The reason was it was removed from the Goldman Sachs conviction buy list. Also taking a look at a fellow Dow component, Chevron, ticker symbol CVX. They actually traded up about 93 cents today. 104.75 was the closing price, or right around there, up about 0.9%. They actually were added to the conviction buy list at Goldman. Now, do I put a ton of weight in that? Not really. But what I do put a weight in is the fact that the options marketplace is pricing in the potential for that stock to move up or down about $4.20 going into November expiration. So that's over the next basically 3.5 weeks. We want to watch that. Now I'm giving you some context of when they're moved or removed from these conviction buy lists. And now you get some price action that you can start looking at your portfolio and seeing if you already have this in there, what kind of repercussions does that kind of potential move have for you as far as your risk tolerance, your objectives? Do you have a plan for that? The broader sector, though, as far as the oil sector, its services, and some of these big cap, large cap oil names, they finished the month down about 3%, and that's ending below what the S&P performed at as well. So we see some negativity and some downside there. Taking a look at the more offensive sector and higher beta stocks, we want to take a look at biotechs. They extended their recent losses. I take a look at the IBB, which is the ETF that tracks the biotechs. It's trading at 256.68, down about 381 today, about 1.5%. There's been a lot of activity in the biotechs. There's also concern about who gets voted in, how that's going to impact that sector, because regulations and so forth are going to change whomever is going to be elected, and we're going to watch that very closely. That particular sector, IBB and biotech, finished the month down about 11.3%. Now, this is in comparison with the broader healthcare sector, which was down about 6.6% this month. So biotechs have really been moving to the downside, and there's a plethora of reasons why, not only just the potential ramifications of the elections and some new regs and regulations, but there is some really interesting action there. One thing that you're going to want to keep an eye on also is going to be the industrials. The industrials right now, they've been outperforming. As a matter of fact, if you look at a name like Roper, came out, ROP is a ticker symbol. Stock's trading at 173.31. It's up 540 today. It outperformed and beat on its bottom line estimates for its quarter. Stock rallied like 3.2%. And again, you're starting to see that they also looked at their guidance, and they actually gave a little bit of a cautious guidance. So the stock moved up. So the sellers haven't jumped in there yet. So there seems to be some positive buzz after the post earnings, but the guidance came in a little bit lower. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Dow component General Electric, we saw that it finished the day after they had announced their merger with Baker Hughes, down about 12 cents. So a little bit muted on those synergies. They did say that the bottom line is going to add to the benefit of earnings. I think fiscal first year is going to be increasing earnings by 4 cents, and then going into 2018, they foresee a little bump in earnings by about 8 cents with the synergies of merging Baker Hughes with the GE Oil and Gas. You did see, though, that Baker Hughes did take it on the chin. They pulled back pretty considerably post a opening bounce, so we're going to keep an eye on that as well. The Treasury markets, you continue to see that the yields are still volatile. We had noted going into most of last week and into the weekend that the yields were moving to the upside. If you take a look at the 2-year Treasury, it's trading, the yield right now is around 0.85%. You also see the 10-year. The 10-year actually finished up at 1.83%. Now, that's increased by about 23 basis points, folks. That is a huge pop in the month of October in the 10-year yield. There's been a lot of institutions, especially the financials, have been waiting to see that yield get above that psychological 2%. And it's been challenging this month to the upside. So that means that yields are going up, bond prices are going down. We're going to keep an eye on that very closely. That could be a catalyst after post-election for the markets, specifically the equity markets. If that trend continues, those dollars are going to have to be parked somewhere. That could be a catalyst for securities. Today's trading volume, on average, 850 million shares typically trade at the New York Stock Exchange. We had over 1 billion shares change hands today on the NYSE floor. So there was a big influx of volume, which we have not seen over the last few sessions last week. Relative strength, we're seeing it in gold miners, GDX, most notable, junior gold miners, also utilities, XLU up about 2%. And so you can look at the metals and mining. Volatility is on the move. You can see that the VIX is at 17 and the VXX, which is the ETF that tracks the volatility structure, is up about 1.8%. Relative weakness, well, as we've noted, you see it in oil, you see it in any of the oil-based products, nat gas, UNG down about 3%. You're also seeing it in some of the softs like cotton, which is down almost 3%, about 2.9%, as well as sugar. You're seeing that down about 2.81%. So we have some weakness in the softs and the commodity space, as we've also noted earlier today. Well, that's it for the closing bell today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. I am going to be on sharp at 8:30 talking about what happened overnight. And then we'll be on for the opening bell. We'll cover what's going on as far as the strategies and the news headlines that are coming through. So this is it for October. We are going into a new trading month starting tomorrow, and my kids are chomping at the bit to get into a little bit of a sugar high, so I'm out of here. All right, folks, wishing you a happy Halloween, and hopefully not too many tricks, more treats, and we will see you tomorrow on MarketStream Live. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the evening.